Most people never think about their wisdom teeth until one of them starts hurting. Today, you'd simply call a dentist. But imagine dentists didn't exist. No anesthesia, no antibiotics, no painkillers. For most of human history, that was reality. And sometimes, an infected tooth was deadly. But the strangest part is something else. People who lived tens of thousands of years ago often had fewer problems with their wisdom teeth than we do today. How is that possible? If wisdom teeth cause so many problems, why did evolution give them to us in the first place? And why do they seem to be causing trouble only now? To understand that, we need to go back, way back, about 50,000 years ago. Back then, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. There was no bread, no pasta, no processed food. Almost everything they ate required serious chewing, tough meat, roots, nuts. Archaeologists often refer to this way of eating as a Paleolithic diet. And it had a major effect. Human jaws worked harder, much harder, from an early age. With every bite, muscles, bones, and teeth were put under greater stress. As a result, people developed broader jaws than many of us have today. And that's where the answer begins. Wisdom teeth were not originally a problem. They were a useful backup. The teeth of our ancestors wore down significantly over the course of a lifetime. Food often contained sand, dust, and tiny stone particles. A 40-year-old person frequently had more worn teeth than many 80-year-olds today. Extra molars were an advantage. They helped people continue chewing food later in life. In other words, wisdom teeth were once exactly what they were meant to be, an extra set of teeth for the later years of life. But then something began to change. Around 12,000 years ago, humans started settling down. Agriculture emerged. Grains were cultivated, food was cooked, ground, and gradually became softer. Suddenly, jaws no longer had to do the same amount of work. Over many generations, they became smaller. The teeth, however, changed much more slowly, and that's where the modern problem begins. 4 additional molars are still trying to fit into jaws that often no longer have enough room for them. Some grow sideways, others push against neighboring teeth, and some never fully emerge at all. Dentists call this impaction. The tooth remains partially or completely trapped inside the jaw. Even Charles Darwin was fascinated by this phenomenon. He suspected that wisdom teeth might be leftovers from an earlier way of life. A kind of evolutionary relic, a trait that was once useful but now often causes problems. And that seems to be exactly what's happening. But even when a wisdom tooth caused trouble in the past, it wasn't necessarily a death sentence, at least not immediately. What followed could be much worse. Imagine it's the year 1200. You wake up the next morning. The pain is still there. 2 days later, it's worse. A week later, one side of your face is swollen. Eating hurts, sleeping hurts. Even talking becomes difficult. And nobody knows why. Today, we know that bacteria cause infections. Back then, nobody knew that. Instead, many people believed in something called tooth worms. Tiny worms supposedly living inside teeth and causing pain. The belief survived for thousands of years, from Europe to Asia. People tried to lure the worms out with smoke, herbs, and strange mixtures. Of course, none of it worked, because the real danger was an infection. When bacteria spread around the tooth, the infection could become established in the jaw. From there, it could spread into surrounding tissue, and in the worst cases, throughout the entire body. Today, we call this life-threatening condition sepsis. Centuries ago, it was often fatal, and that's why people sometimes turned to drastic measures. The tooth had to come out. But who removed it? Not necessarily a doctor. Often it was a barber surgeon, someone who cut hair, treated wounds, and pulled teeth on the side. Sometimes traveling tooth pullers arrived in town. Their tools looked more like instruments from a torture chamber: metal hooks, forceps, levers. The procedure itself often became a public spectacle. Crowds gathered in marketplaces. Some tooth pullers advertised their successes. Others relied on loud promises. The patient sat or stood while assistants held them in place. And all of this usually happened without modern anesthesia. Maybe there was some alcohol, maybe a few herbs. Often there was nothing at all. Then the forceps were applied. A single mistake could shatter the tooth or leave fragments buried in the jaw. Then the tooth was ripped out with brute force. If everything went well, the pain was gone. If not, the real problem was only beginning. Any open wound could become infected, and once again, there were no antibiotics. It would take centuries before dentistry began to change. One of the most important figures in that transformation was Pierre Fauchard, an 18th century French surgeon. Today, he is often called the father of modern dentistry. Fauchard realized that dental diseases were not caused by worms or curses. Instead, he searched for their real causes. In 1728, he published Le Chirurgien Dentiste, a work that would fundamentally change dentistry. For the first time, dental medicine was treated not only as a craft, but as a science. For its time, that was revolutionary. But even Fauchard had no anesthesia, no antibiotics, and an infected wisdom tooth remained a serious threat. Even today, wisdom teeth are not completely harmless. One common complication is called pericoronitis. This occurs when the tissue surrounding a partially erupted wisdom tooth becomes inflamed. The pain can be severe, and that's one reason millions of wisdom teeth are removed every year. What makes this story so fascinating is that the problem may be a direct consequence of modern life itself. Our ancestors evolved wisdom teeth because they needed them. Their jaws were larger, their food was tougher, their teeth wore down more heavily. Today we live in a world our bodies were never designed for. Our diet has changed dramatically in just a few thousand years. For evolution, that's the blink of an eye. And that's why we still carry traits from a long-forgotten world. Not just wisdom teeth, our craving for sugar, our love of fat, our fear of darkness. For our ancestors, these traits made perfect sense. Sugar meant energy. Fat meant survival. Darkness could hide predators. The human body was shaped for a world that remained largely unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. Then, within just a few thousand years, everything changed. Agriculture, cities, industry, modern medicine. For evolution, it happened almost overnight. And that's why we still carry traits that evolved for a completely different world. Much of your body was built for a life that no longer exists. Wisdom teeth are among the most visible reminders of that fact. But there is something strange. Not everyone has wisdom teeth. Some people are born with all four, others only develop two, and some never develop any at all. Which raises an interesting question. If wisdom teeth were once so important for survival, why are some people now born without them? For a long time, scientists assumed wisdom teeth were simply part of being human. But modern research suggests something may be changing. In some populations, a growing number of people never develop one or more wisdom teeth. Dentists call this tooth agenesis. The teeth never form in the first place. For those people, there is no impaction, no extraction, no wisdom tooth pain. Which sounds like winning the genetic lottery. But it also raises a bigger question. Are wisdom teeth slowly disappearing? No one knows for certain. Evolution moves far too slowly for us to watch it happen in real time. But if smaller jaws continue to be common, individuals who never develop wisdom teeth may avoid many of the complications associated with them. And if a trait is no longer useful, evolution has a habit of getting rid of it. Not quickly, not in centuries, but over thousands of generations. So while wisdom teeth once helped our ancestors survive, they may now be entering the final chapter of their story. So the next time someone says wisdom teeth are useless, that's only partly true. They are not a mistake. They are a relic, a leftover from a time when extra teeth could help ensure survival. Today, they often cause problems. But for a human living 50,000 years ago, those same teeth might have meant the difference between hunger and another meal. Every wisdom tooth tells a story from a time when a few extra teeth could still make the difference between life and death.